Do we ever have an awesome show lined up for you this week? We're going to leave our home base here in the Yukon and fly 600 miles south to the coastal mountains in British Columbia. When we're there, we're going to mount a little expedition, and we're going to see if we can track down the legend of the lost gold mine of Pitt Lake.
You're living on Yukon time. You're leaving your cares behind, where adventure fills the day and the song of nature plays. You'll feel it as you explore this paradise of the north. Come discover all you'll find. Stake your claim to peace of mind. You're living on Yukon time.
This is the story of the Pitt River, a hidden valley, and the legend of a lost gold mine. It begins in the late 1880s when a native Canadian named Slumach showed up in the town of New Westminster in southern BC with a sack of gold nuggets. He allegedly drank most of his riches, but he would return often to the saloons of the town, spending his gold nuggets. The locals would try to get him to spill the beans and give up the exact location of the source of his wealth. He never told a soul about his hidden mine location, and despite attempts to follow him into the bush, the wily miner was adept at hiding his trail and keeping the gold location hidden. But in 1890, things came to a head. Louis Boulier, a Métis, got into a fight with Slumach in the bush near the Pitt River. Shots rang out and Boulier lay dead. Slumach was caught and found guilty. And justice was quick in British Columbia at the turn of the century. In 1891, Slumach was hung, and he took the secret of the gold mine to the grave. In the past century, hundreds of adventurers, miners, and engineers have returned to explore the area to find the secret location and the source of the wealth. In the summer of 2002, I took my airplane and a film crew into the valley to find Slumach's gold. This is what happened as it happened.
Well, we're here at the head of the Pitt Lake and see if we can get this gold. You have the credentials, don't you?
Yeah, I suppose so, because I first worked in a gold mine in 1974 and been doing it off and on ever since. So.
And you're an engineer?
Yes, I am. And I know that gold will make a fool of you every time.
Well, there's a real inherent passion that some of us have for. It's sort of like going to Vegas. It's one of these days.
Yeah,
going to strike it rich. 100 years ago, they didn't have Vegas, but they had gold, right? And that's where we start with the legend of Slumach's gold. Do you think there's anything to it?
Yeah, sure. I accept it at face value. Why not? These mountains through here, they're full of all kinds of metals like copper and nickel and gold. And the mines reports from back in the 1880s, they say that all these creeks coming down into the Fraser Valley, they were panned for gold. The stuff has to come from somewhere. But this guy, he came out to New Westminster with nuggets the size of walnuts. Now, people come out with bottles of gold dust, but nuggets the size of walnuts, that kind of gets a guy's attention.
He got into a fight and ended up killing somebody.
Yeah. This was this guy, Louis Bean, who was apparently, they were both pretty wild characters and they didn't like each other. And Slumach was the kind of guy that would blow somebody away just because he didn't like him. And so something that Louis Bean said, or Louis B as it was, took him amiss and bang, done. But that was what he got hanged for.
That was the end of Slumach.
Right.
And the legend went with him because nobody knows. Did he leave any evidence of where the gold was?
Well, the story goes that he drew a map and the map was copied and the copy was lost and burnt in a house fire or something like that. But then too, I could draw you a sketch map of these mountains here and you'd never follow it because the country is too big. Very, very tough to do.
We have all of our equipment here, packed enough food to keep us going for a few days, and we're going to look for this gold. Where do we start?
We start by asking the locals because they know the country way better than we do. And one place you look is where the creeks come down out of the mountains. And you look around these creeks here, they'll be pretty steep and full of rocks, and you look for rocks with sulfides in them.
You know, the reason I like doing these shows, Tom, is that the information is sometimes available on the web or whatever in books. Well, we sort of bring it to life because we brought the airplane in here and we're actually going to go up, see if we can find it. So this is, in a way, a dangerous mission because the country back here is rough enough, but there's also a curse involved with this thing.
Yeah, well, apparently, story goes that when Slough Mac was about to get hanged for murdering this guy, he put a curse on his mine to prevent anybody from ever finding it again.
Okay, the question is, Tom, how are we going to split the gold up? 50-50?
Nah, 60-40. Engineers rule.
That's very generous of you. You're going to give me 60%?
Find it first.
The Pitt River Valley that Slough Mac explored lies at the top end of Pitt Lake in southwestern BC. While the mountain valley is only about 15 air miles from the city limits of Vancouver, there is no road access, so the only way to get in here is by boat or seaplane. Now this valley is a place of contrast. On the one hand, it is a green, fertile valley Shangri-La, fed by an azure river that drains year-round from the surrounding watershed. But this flat, peaceful valley floor abuts inhospitably against snow-capped mountains that extend straight up into the coastal rainforests. These are mountains that can swallow a man whole. Well, Tom and I are here on the river to see if we can track down the legend of Slough Mac's gold mine, and we decided we're going to need some help from the locals. So who would you suggest we should be talking to?
Oh, if anybody knows where the gold, or about the gold, it's Danny Gierak at the lodge here.
How far up is the lodge from here?
It's just a mile or two up here.
So we can go up there, and he's got some really good knowledge?
Yeah, he's the local expert.
Now maybe we'll meet up later on, but we might need some help handing the gold into the airplane. Would you be there around?
Oh yeah, yeah, good luck.
Okay. We'll see you later. Thanks a
Okay.
lot.
Over the past century, settlers have come to inhabit this fertile valley to live in frame houses up and down both sides of the river. But the remoteness soon drove these early pioneers into the bustling city of Vancouver to the south. Now, all that remains are the ruins of the old houses, a few paths and logging roads. But today, a handful of new settlers are escaping the city for the rural life by the river. As Tom and I stumble through the woods, we come across a little cabin. It's owned by Chris and Diana. It's the beginning of a dream, a modern-day homestead and 120 acres of prime river valley.
Why is everything outside?
Today, all this?
Yeah.
Well, we're renovating our old cabin. We're painting, so everything's out in the open right now.
And basically, what we're trying to do is get set up before the rains come here.
Got power out here?
Nope.
Nope. Hopefully hydropower with a Pelton wheel.
Oh, you got lots of running water here.
Yep. In the summertime, it's not so, there's not so much water, but that's usually when you don't need the power. It's in the winter time, in the fall and spring, when there is a lot of water potential generation power. We need the heat and the light source and so on.
So tell me a secret about the valley that nobody else knows.
It's all about fresh water. It's a coastal temperate rainforest. The cycling of water between the ocean and the watershed, the glaciers. It gives life to the flora and the fauna and ourselves. It's a different lifestyle than living by the ocean.
Is it a good life up here in the wilderness?
Yeah. Oh, it's Vancouver's best kept secret.
I'm looking for the gold mine. Who do you think could tell me?
We're all looking for the gold mine, but Dan Garrick's been up here a number of years, and if he would be the one to tell you where it's at.
He's around.
You know, the thing is, in the bush, you have to live off the land, and some of the early explorers here, you know, a century ago, would have eaten something like this. It's good in protein. By our standards, oh no, I wouldn't want to do it. But, you know, they probably would have. And I'll give it a try. Do you want to try?
No, you first.
Okay. Oh, it's a black slug. Of course, you realize there's absolutely no historical evidence that people actually did this, but I have the feeling that they did. It would have been loaded with protein. It was not bad. It really isn't. No. You want to try? Thanks. Well, let's go see if we can find out.
Our walk up the valley floor has turned into a search for Dan. But before we find him, the legend deepens with the story of a man named Jackson. Resident Don Martin picks up the story in the years right after Slumach's hanging.
So Jackson, he comes in, he spends the summer.
What years were they? What year?
Though I can't really tell you there. It was near the turn of the century, in the 1910s, or somewhere in that area, the way I understand it. And he was up here for a long time. And I guess he's run out of food, and he's sick, and he's not feeling well, and he climbs up, he's lost. And he climbs up the highest point where to look down.
The bugs would have been just...
The bugs are killing him. I mean,
terrible.
it's wild up there, eh? Especially, in that time of year. And so he looked down, and he seen a stream. And it looked like the small stream went down. And it looked like it was on bedrock, which is the key, eh?
And this is what everybody's been looking for.
Bedrock.
Is this stream that goes down?
But streams disappear. Like, they can be there one year and gone the next, eh? So he climbed down to it, and he started to look, and he started to pan it. Right away, hit color. Right off the bat, he said he hit her. And there she was. And the story is, there were chunks the size of nuts. And he's packing all this gold. Can you imagine a guy feeling sick? Just imagine. So then he got to Westminster Hospital. He wouldn't say too much, but he asked for his buddy in the States to come up, and he did. And he told him, and when he come to interview him, he says, "Jock, keep looking. It's there beyond your wildest dreams." That was the big, that drove everybody nuts. It's there beyond your wildest dreams. And he had hid some, he said, under a tent-shaped rock.
There'll be all kinds of tent-shaped rocks.
The whole country's full of tent-shaped rocks, so I mean, that's not what you look for. But people have been up and down a way back, and I sometime wonder how a prospect would hike all the way through the Third Canyons away back there and come out. I mean, there's no roads in.
Don gives us the first real clue of what might lay behind the legend of Slumach's gold. And it just might have something to do with a giant slough, made not by man, but by nature.
Well, like in a hot day in the summer, it melts, the glacier melts and fills up the hole, the bottom, like a little lake. In the morning, it's cold at night, it drops. And then she slushes, that's where they figure the gold was slushing.
So it's like nature's slough.
That's right, and it just keeps slushing and pushing.
Have you ever had the gold fever?
No. One time a guy said to me, he says, the prospectors come in here all the time, and he says to me, "Don, have you ever found any gold?" And I told him, "No, I found silver." And his eyes just lit up, eh? And I says, "Yeah, every time I set the hook, that big steelhead silver flash." That's what I found.
So the Pitt River Valley and its secrets seem to flow from its cool, azure, glacier-fed water. Fishing guide Eric Scanning tells us about the sockeye, the biggest, he says, in all of BC. But the big surprise is we're only 15 air miles from Vancouver, and there's nobody here for the gold or the fish.
Well, we have 3 different species of salmon, 4 different species of trout.
Big sockeye too, aren't they?
Big sockeye. These are the largest sockeye in the province. You won't find them this big anywhere else in the province.
This is one of the best rivers in the Fraser River system.
In the Fraser Valleys, in the Fraser Valley area, there's nothing else that can compare to this.
It's just unbelievable. But we're looking for gold.
Yeah.
What do you think? Are we going to?
This is a good spot for it. I mean, there's a lot of history here involved with gold. I mean, as you know, and I know if I were to take up looking for gold as a sport, I'd probably do it around here.
Where is it? You must know where it is. Come on, now you've guided up.
I've been sworn to secrecy. I've been sworn to secrecy by the other people from the area.
Let's talk about gold fever. People who came up here 100 years ago, 150 years ago, they had it, didn't they?
Well, the thing is that back then, a guy with nothing more than a shovel and a pan and a camp outfit could actually make a lot of money. If he hit the right spot, one guy by himself could make big money. It's not a matter of huge amounts of equipment, drilling and blasting solid rock, regulations, etc., 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 that you got now, or indeed in any hard rock mining. A guy just like us with no more equipment can come right here, scuff up some gravel, and if he hits it in the right strikes it rich. And the difference between now and 150 years ago is that all the good ground has been panned over and panned over and panned over. So that is
But
the
as
problem.
Don has explained, though, that can change. I mean, you can have all of a sudden a creek might open up and or a glacier could be or a pond could be forming up and down, and all of a sudden gold could come down again.
Or I'd say more likely that you've got places back here in the mountains that are so difficult to get to, so difficult to find, and so difficult to work, that that's why they're still relatively unknown and indeed secret.
This is really rough country, isn't it?
Yeah, you bet it is. You remember that headline that said, "Nature doesn't need ghosts to guard her lost mine"? Well, I've seen a lot of rough country in a lot of different parts of the world, and this, for moving across it on foot or finding anything in it, it's the roughest country I've ever seen in my life. And it's easy to understand how a guy can break his health at best, and indeed at worst just vanish without trace, and a lot of people did.
When we come back, we find Dan and we mount an expedition for the lost gold mine of the Pitt River Valley.
As soon as I get down around this creek, my heart starts racing there, and the adrenaline starts flowing. You just start thinking of gold. And